I know you have memories
Of
of
course.
40 years of tasting. From your on-premier tasting to the bottle tasting, were there a lot of differences? According to your tasting notes.
We saw in the Premier tasting that it's a great vintage. Okay. But the problem that you have great, we have several levels.
Right.
Okay. We saw that it was a very great vintage. But the bottle tasting was much more interesting because you have more precision and the vintage is clearly greater than expected.
Welcome to another episode of On the Road Edition, hosted by Stevie Kim. Each week, Stevie travels to incredible wine destinations, interviewing some of the Italian wine scene's most interesting personalities, talking about wines, the foods, as well as the incredible travel destinations.
Hello, my name's Stevie Kim, and this is Italian Wine Podcast On the Road series. And this is a special series that we have dedicated to Bordeaux with our fearless leader of Bordeaux, Monsieur Burtschy, our wine friend. So what we're going to do is go through the left bank, the wineries that we were able to visit, taste some wines, mostly Bernard, and give you an overview of the 2022 vintage. I have a brochure here. I don't know if you can get a hold of this, maybe on the website, from the Grand Cru Classé on 1855. It is a great map because it divides the various wine regions and it gives you all the producers. So I would start with the top, with Saint-Estephe. We went to visit only one winery. There are only 5 in the classification, and one winery was Château Mouton Rothschild.
Yes.
Can you give us a brief overview of the 2022 from Château Mouton Rothschild?
Château Mouton Rothschild, Saint-Estephe, in the mind, it's probably the most tannic wine from Medoc. And it's in the north, because you have a bit less sun, it's a bit colder, and you have not the same maturity as in Margaux, for example. And always you have the tannins are harsher, okay? And that is not easy for the beginners. But of course, it's perfect to match with food, but you have a lot of tannins, and usually to calm the tannins, they have a lot of Merlot and Morose. Usually you have 60% Cabs and 40% Merlot to give more smoothness to the wine. And Morose is probably considered that the most eminent wine from Saint-Estephe. Saint-Estephe will have only 5 classified growths.
Yeah, why is that?
Wine, it's very easy to understand. In 1855, to go from Bordeaux, there were no cars. And to go to Bordeaux, it was with a horse, and you need at least 90 minutes to go from Bordeaux to Saint-Estephe. You have 21 classified growths in Margaux, which is very close to Bordeaux, but to go to Saint-Estephe, 80 kilometers.
Oh, so that makes sense. So it had to do with the distance.
Yes, that is a distance. That is in the north. It's colder. It's a long way. You had no cars or the train. Okay, and of course, they were less tasters in Saint-Estephe. And for example, Morose in 1820 was completely unknown. Was created 30 years, 40 years ago. Margaux was created 1 century before because it was very close to the town. And the buyers are in the town, they are not in the north.
So if you can generalize, how are the wines from Saint-Estephe different from the like Pauillac or Saint-Julien or the others?
Usually, Saint-Estephe is always more tannic wine.
More what?
More tannins. We have
more
always
tannins.
more tannins.
Okay.
And that is difficult for the consumer.
Aha.
Okay? Yes, and you can wait because the tannins are decreasing with the age. But when you taste a young wine, you have a lot of tannins. And usually, when you give a glass of Saint-Estephe, the consumer cannot drink it. It's too much. You need to have a real initiation before to taste this kind of wine. It was exactly the same in Barolo, because in Barolo it was always the most tannic wine, and it's easier to drink Barbaresco. It's the same, exactly the same as Barolo and Barbaresco. And at Barolo, during a long time, okay, that is the greatest wine of Italy, but it's not so easy to drink.
Okay.
Yeah.
So very good. Then I would go to traveling from north to south, and the next town is Pauillac.
Yes.
Right? In Pauillac, we already spoke about on our previous video of the first growths, of course, Château Lafite, Château Latour, and Château Mouton. So go back to the first video to understand these three wineries of the first growths. Then we went to see, if I'm not mistaken, Château Pontet-Canet, I have, Château Lynch-Moussas,
Yeah.
Pichon-Baron, and
Pichon-Lalande.
Pichon-Comtesse.
Yeah.
Confusing because it's both Pichon and they're in front of each other.
Yeah.
And this is part of the Pauillac trip that we've done. But you've also tasted many other Pauillac wines. Can you give us a little overview of Pontet-Canet, Lynch-Moussas, Pichon-Baron, and Pichon-Comtesse?
The comparison with Saint-Estephe is very interesting because you have roughly the same level of cabs, Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yes.
But
in terms of blending.
And apparently the same level of tannins. But they are not so harsh because they are much more elegant. They are much more elegant because you have a bit more freshness. The soil of Pauillac is not the same, the terroir is not the same from Pauillac and Saint-Estephe. Saint-Estephe is always less gravels because the greatness of Pauillac, you have a lot of gravels. We say terroir de grave. With very small stones inside. You can see that in Latour, for example, it's very, very interesting. And that the wine is always much more elegant. You have more freshness. And it seems cleaner, okay? And that is Pauillac. And that is the reason because Pauillac was 60 kilometers from Bordeaux, but there are 25 classified groves because we have two big places with classified groves, it's Margaux and Pauillac.
Pauillac.
No.
Okay. I only have Château Béchevel for Saint-Julien. We're traveling from Saint-Estèphe to Pauillac to Saint-Julien.
Yeah.
Can you give us an overview of Saint-Julien?
Yeah. Alors, Pauillac and Saint-Julien, that is completely forgotten today, but you need to send the wine. And there was a boat in Pauillac, a boat in Benchevel to take the bottles. And it's much more easier to send the wine by boat than by the road. And the road was not so perfect as today.
Oh, I see.
And the bottles were broken and so on. Okay? And the most exportation was through the port of Pauillac and Saint-Julien.
Okay.
And Bechevel, for example, it was a port to send to United States, to UK, and so on.
So if you can generalize in terms of the characteristic of wines coming from Saint-Julien. So of course we have chateaus such as Talbot, Léoville, Barton, Lagrange, La Rose, Léoville, Poiffret, etc., etc. How can you generalize these type of wines?
Yeah, you have two blocks. Block Margaux and the block Saint-Julien, Pauillac, Saint-Estephe.
Yes.
Okay. And you have more cabs in the second part. But the most elegant is always Saint-Julien. When you begin this block, you begin always with Saint-Julien because everybody loves Saint-Julien. It's incredible. And when I have the tasting, when the vintage is difficult and with a lot of rain, we are coming in Saint-Julien. All the Saint-Julien are always easy to drink, spicy, and lovely. That is Saint-Julien.
So
but the problem is small.
So for those three areas, Saint-Estèphe, Pauillac, and Saint-Julien, the wines that you've tasted during En Primeur, because I know you have memories of 40 years of tasting. From your En Primeur tasting to the bottle tasting, were there a lot of differences? According to your tasting notes.
We saw in the Premier tasting that it's a great vintage. Okay. But the problem that you have great, we have several levels.
Right.
Okay. We saw that it was a very great vintage. But the bottle tasting was much more interesting because you have more precision and the vintage is clearly greater than expected.
Okay.
And in my mind, automatically came all the great vintage, the 29, the 47, the 49, and they are in the same level because I have all these wines in my mind, okay? And I changed the category. I said, we are in the top 5 in the century. It is not the same. Roughly, we have 20 great vintages every 100 years, 1 to 5, but that is the top 5. It's only 5%.
Okay, alrighty. So that is a review of the wines from Saint-Estephe Pauillac and Saint-Julien for the 22 vintages from Bordeaux with Bernard Burtschy, and stay tuned to cover other areas.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of On the Road Edition, hosted by Stevie Kim. Join her again next week for more interesting content on the Italian wine scene. You can also find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. You can check out our YouTube channel, Mama Jumbo Shrimp, to watch these interviews and the footage captured at each location. Ching ching!